Hi guys, today we're going to be talking about flexibility in your feet and why it's so important for runners, and specifically we're going to zero in on the big toe, and that's something I look at with every runner just to make sure that they have enough mobility in that big toe in order to allow the proper mechanics of running. And I'm just going to go through why that's so important today. Particularly we're going to look at big toe extension. So extension is like when your toes pull up towards you. So if you imagine like standing and then pulling your toes up towards you. I'm going to call that extension. It's actually called dorsiflexion, but extension is just a bit easier. It makes a bit more sense. So I'm just going to talk about it as extension, okay? So if we look at this video here, this isn't just me running barefoot on a treadmill. And what we're going to look at is why the big toe extension is so important in order to give us a good strong foot to push off from. So if we just sort of pause there and bring it through into mid stance, which is where you're taking the most weight on your foot, okay? And I'm going to draw on the arch of your foot, okay? And the big toe joint is just there, okay? So that's your big toe joint that we're talking about. Now, the arch of the foot being there, we've got the plantar fascia, which is a connective tissue that runs along the base of the foot from the heel to the toes, okay? You can check out the blog that I've linked to this video in the description if you want a little bit more kind of a visual on the plantar fascia. Now, if we draw on where the plantar fascia goes, it's running along the bottom of the foot there, and it's quite slack in this position here, okay? So the arch is quite low, and we've gone into a bit of kind of pronation, they call it. As we come back, we start to extend the big toe, and by the time we're going to push off, we've extended the big toe quite a bit, okay? So now if I draw on the big toe joint, there, so there's your big toe joint, whoops, wrong way. There's your big toe joint extending there. Now if I draw on the arch, you can see that the arch is actually lifted up, and that's being done by the plantar fascia, which is being pulled really tight because it's being pulled around that corner there. Sorry, I'm drawing that very well. Let me have another go. That's it. It's as good as it's going to get. So the plantar fascia is being pulled really tight by being pulled around that joint corner. That joint's being pulled into extension, which has pulled the plantar fascia tighter, which is actually resulting in a force that pulls that up by pulling these two parts closer together. I hope that makes sense. Now, the cool thing about this video, if we take everything off for a second, is we can actually see it. That there is your plantar fascia. So you can see, I'll zoom in a bit, hopefully you can still see that okay. You can actually see the plantar fascia tensioning up there, that tendon connective tissue thing there. That's your plantar fascia. If I bring it back a few frames, by the time it gets to there, you can see you can't see it anymore, okay? So plantar fascia is slack, tightening up, and you can see it emerging there, sort of popping forwards, and that's what's pulling that big toe joint there into extension and lifting, sorry, as the big toe is being placed into extension, the plantar fascia is being pulled tight, and that's lifting the arch upwards, okay? The arch being lifted up effectively gives you a nice strong foot, a nice stable foot to push off from. And that helps make sure that you can sort of propel yourself forwards efficiently instead of having a sort of floppy foot surface to push from. You have a nice strong stable foot to push off from. And what that does is it helps to optimize the mechanics of your push-off. So if you don't have that, you're effectively going to have to compensate a little bit. So some of the ways you might compensate, if you don't have this extension in you, let me see. If that joint there is stiff and won't extend, you can't benefit from this windlass mechanism. So you won't be able to create that foot stability via this mechanism, which is actually quite a passive mechanism. It doesn't take much muscular activity. So if you don't get this to get that foot stability, you're going to have to generate it elsewhere. So you're going to have to sort of tighten up some of the tendons and things that run into the foot, which is going to make life harder for them. And also what you're going to see quite often is that if the big toe joint won't extend, that one I've drawn on there, then you'll sort of roll outwards onto the little toes, and we see people kind of rolling out into more kind of supination before they, not supination, more kind of inversion before they push off. So they're pushing off, instead of pushing through the big toe, they're pushing through the smaller toes, and they're not getting that windlass mechanism. Also, they're sort of overburdening some of the tendons and structures on the outside of the foot. So basically, it's creating a lot of different stresses in the foot that are not kind of optimal, and it's all sort of hinging on this lack of big toe extension, which I've indicated there. So what I've done in the little article that I've attached to this video is I go through how to assess your big toe extension, and then how to know if you've got enough, and if you haven't, just a quick stretch to do. And actually, I actually recommend that runners do it every day anyway, just to make sure you don't lose it, right? Because, you know, if you develop things later in your life like bunions and things like that, you might be able to avoid those by keeping your big toe extension, because losing that extension actually sort of makes the bunion development more likely by changing the mechanics of how you walk through your foot. It's pretty easy, really. You just kind of push your toes into extension. So you're like standing and just kind of push your toes into extension, and then push them into flexion just to stretch them out the other way, and then do that for 10-20 seconds, and then do it on the other side. And I get runners to do that every day, just while they're brushing the teeth, because that's a nice easy reminder, not doing anything anyway. And that will help you keep that mobility in your foot so that you can continue to make use of that windlass mechanism. You won't have to develop any compensations or anything like that. Anyway, so that's everything I wanted to talk about today. As I say, check out that blog post for a little bit more info to have a look on where the actual plantar fascia is, sort of, and then I've got a few images in there that explain exactly what's going on as well. So hope that's helpful. Any comments or questions, then just leave them below, and I will see you next week. Thanks.